Ever had that gut feeling you're meant for more than your current job? That whisper of potential going untapped? Welcome to the Inkling Effect, where we transform career intuition into purposeful action. I'm Binny Langler. I'm a certified career, strengths and executive coach. And you'll gain access to the same powerful coaching techniques, expert knowledge and practical guidance that thousands of my clients have used when standing at their own professional crossroads. In each episode, I'm going to unpack the steps and the speed bumps of career transitions, offering practical strategies to navigate the messy middle. You know, that space between acknowledging you need change and making it happen, and boy, can it get messy. Each Inkling Effect episode will also draw on my first-hand experience. I've navigated 2 successful career changes of my own. I'll share personal insights, the lessons I've learned, and proven strategies from my own path towards that something more that I was seeking in my career. Like me, you probably don't know what that new path is yet, but don't worry, I'll guide you towards the clarity that you're seeking. Whether you're contemplating a bold and big professional pivot or just seeking deeper satisfaction in your current role, this podcast provides the inspiration, the tools, and the actionable advice to transform possibility into reality. Now, if you know someone that is constantly telling you that they are unhappy at work, then do them a favour and share this podcast with them. Let me be the one to help them get unstuck. And if you gain one useful insight from this episode, the best way to let me know is to hit subscribe or follow. It's really great feedback for me, and also it ensures that you don't miss my next episode. All right, let's dive in. Welcome to episode 3. Is this a workquake? And your roadmap out. Today we're answering the question that might be burning inside you right now. Is this a workquake? Maybe you've been having that sinking feeling every Saturday night, knowing Monday morning means you're returning to a job that drains your soul. Or perhaps you've caught yourself daydreaming about a completely different career path, only to dismiss it as unrealistic. If any of this sounds familiar, you might be experiencing what I refer to as a workquake. And if you are, I've got the roadmap to lead you out of it. Today we're talking about that feeling of being trapped in jobs that we do not like anymore, and more importantly, what you can do about it. We'll explore something I refer to as a workquake and how understanding this phenomenon can be the key to unlocking your next chapter. Let's talk a little bit more about the workquake phenomenon. I'm going to start with a little story. So I want you to imagine someone, maybe it's you, who wakes up every morning feeling like they're living someone else's life. They go through the motions at work, but deep down, they know something fundamentally is off. This person might think that they're having a midlife crisis, and this is quite common. What they're really experiencing is what is referred to as a workquake. This phrase was originally coined by Bruce Feiler and beautifully explored in his groundbreaking book, The Search, where he talks about this seismic shift that happens in our careers, not just once, but multiple times throughout our career journey. In fact, according to Feiler, our lives are upended by a stream of workquake on average every 2.5 years. So picture this, you're standing on what you thought was solid ground, your stable career, and then suddenly that ground starts to shift and shake beneath your feet like an earthquake. Everything you thought you knew about your professional identity begins to crumble, and you're left feeling completely disorientated and totally unprepared for this seismic shift. According to Feiler's extensive research, workquakes come with a predictable set of feelings. You might be feeling uncertain, confused, or in pain. And you might feel like life is coming at you from all directions, or that you've somehow veered off your expected path. And you might feel unnerved, overwhelmed, or like you're living life out of order. And here's what's important to understand in these circumstances. These feelings are completely normal. Feiler's research shows that we spend half our lives in these kind of unsettled states. So if you're feeling this way, you're not broken. You are completely human. So take a deep breath and relax, settle in, and we're going to cover a little bit more ground on this topic. So FILE's research shows us that these transitions, these workquakes, are actually a normal part of human development. So we're not meant to stay in the same lane forever, even though this has been something that's been drummed into us around careers for many, many years. Our lives naturally reorganise themselves, and it can happen around new priorities, new values, which I touched on in episode 1, and new versions of who we're becoming. I've experienced several workquakes in my own life, and I've guided countless clients through them. So what I'd like to do is share 2 of my own workquakes with you, because you may actually recognise yourself in these stories. My first earthquake, we'll call this the 5-star reality check. So in my early 20s, I had been working in a 5-star hotel for around 5 years. I started working full-time there during university, and I was steadily progressing up the ranks. I was good at it, and from the outside, it looked like I was building a solid career. But then one day, I had what I can only describe as a moment of clarity. I was looking at my manager. She was a woman in her 40s. She was single. We were working the late shift at that moment, a 6 p.m. to a 1 a.m. shift. It dawned on me. Her entire life revolved around the hotel. Her friends were from work. Her social life was work events or with work people. Her identity was completely wrapped up in her position. And suddenly, like a lightning bolt, it hit me. This could also be my future. If I stayed on this path, working in this industry, I didn't want that. So in that moment, I realised hotel life was not what I wanted as a 40-year-old. I wanted more than that. If I was going to have kids and a partner, and that's what I was hoping for, then why would I be at work doing the late shift if I wanted to be home with them? So the scary part is I didn't know what else to do. I knew nothing else. The hotel industry was all I'd ever known. I had completed a degree in hotel management and marketing, and I'd worked professionally full-time for nearly 5 years in this role, and it was the career that I was fully committed to. So that was my first workquake, and it was terrifying because I had no roadmap for what came next and very little work experience, or for that matter, life experience in my early 20s to guide me through that. So moving on to my second workquake, we'll call this one the post-kids awakening. So fast forward to my late 30s, so probably about 15 years down the track. After having my 2 girls, I'd worked so hard for the career in digital product innovation that I'd built after leaving hotels. And yes, I did find my way out of that first transition. I moved across in 1997 to selling websites in the very early stages of the dot-com boom and the digital revolution. To put it simply, I rode that digital wave for 20 years and moved across at quite the perfect time. So I climbed the ladder and achieved what looked like success on paper, but I'd also burned out in the process, and I talk about that in episode 1 as well. Then came maternity leave, and with that comes a lot of time to think about what I wanted my life to look like. The career I'd worked really hard for, and the one that I'd literally burned out for, it no longer excited me. There was no flame, no spark associated with that anymore. Just the prospect of returning to what felt like a really soul-crushing treadmill. And I knew at this point I wanted more meaning, more purpose, and more fulfillment. Definitely more balance in my life. And I think a lot of this was triggered through having kids and wanting to be home and around for them. I think also this particular workquake was motivated for very different reasons. I was more about purpose and meaning. Again, I felt completely lost and I had no plan, but I was absolutely certain about one thing. I had to resist returning to that job and that way of working. What I did have this time round was knowledge and experience of making a complete transition to a different career path, because I'd done it before. I also had, which was different, a mortgage, dependents, and much more responsibility to add into this equation. So what I've learned is that a workquake isn't just about changing jobs. It's profound and it's powerful. And that's because it's driven by something deeper, a desire to fulfill your potential and become a more authentic version of yourself at work. So when you're in the middle of a workquake, you're confronting two seemingly contradictory truths simultaneously. That's a tongue twister. The first truth is crystal clear. I can't remain in this job or career. You just know there's no longevity in it. You've got to find something else. But the second truth is equally powerful and paralyzing. It's that I have no idea what I want to pursue instead. Now, this tension creates a feeling that's both potent and revolutionary. And here's what Filer's research tells us, that this discomfort is actually a sign that you're ready for your next life transition. The key is learning to capture that revolutionary moment instead of letting it keep you stuck in quicksand. So that's going to take me into talking a little bit about the real reasons that we stay stuck. And just as a side note, stuck is one of the most commonly used terms in every early discussion I have with a client, is they feel completely stuck. So why do we stay in jobs that are slowly killing our spirits? And why do we remain paralyzed when every fiber of our being is screaming for change? And it's not a simple answer. This is something that I grappled with during my second career change more so. I circled through so many reasons to stay. My ego, reputation, responsibility to my family, judgment from others, lack of options, or so I thought. From my own experience and that of my clients, I've also identified several patterns, and I want to share these with you today. And I encourage you to really listen, not just with your ears, but with your heart. And I want you to notice which of these reasons resonate with you. And it probably won't be just one. Fear of change. Let's start with the big one, hey? It's human nature to resist change. And when you recognize that you can't stay in your job anymore, or it's making you unhappy or physically ill, you realize change is required to take yourself out of that situation. So even when our current situation is making us miserable, we still resist change. That familiar job, even though it's unpleasant, can seem way more appealing than the unknown. I lived this for 2 years in my previous job. 2 years. I knew I needed to leave, but the devil I knew felt way safer than the devil that I didn't. Next, we've got the fear of uncertainty. Career transitions come with massive uncertainty. You might be worried about learning a different field or having to start from scratch, or you're terrified of the financial unpredictability or having to take a slight pay cut initially that comes with what is perceived to be starting over again. Or what if you don't like it? The grass is greener lure, you get there and you don't like it. So this is that huge aura of uncertainty that sits around the thought of making some kind of career change. Then we move on to fear of failure and judgment. So here's where it gets really personal, because you start overthinking every perceived risk. And then your mind becomes this highlight reel of everything that could go wrong. And suddenly in your mind, failure seems way more likely than success. So here's the kicker. Then you start imagining what people will say if you do fail, how they'll judge you, and then how they'll talk about you. So this one can get really messy in the head, that fear of failure and judgment. Then we've got the big one. I do an activity with some of my clients talking about what might be holding them back. Every single one of them circles financial considerations or constraints. And it's probably the one that is potentially the most valid, but there's always a way around it. You know, let's be honest about money. The financial security of your current job is and can be the significant anchor. Even when I was really desperately unhappy, when my physical and mental health was suffering massively, I kept telling myself that the financial security of the job that I had was worth it, that I owed it to my kids and family to not reduce our household income by making this change that seemed like it was kind of selfish and for myself. But I didn't really owe it to them. When you factor in the cost of your health, your relationships, and your overall well-being, is that paycheck really worth it? Then there's the social pressure. Pressure from others, parents, siblings, friends, mentors, they all seem to place a really high value on that stability. Get yourself a stable job, or a traditional career path, which is find a great company and work your way up, or stay around for your long service leave. And I remember my mum constantly telling me how lucky I was to have a stable job with great flexibility around the kids. And yeah, I did have a stable job and it paid well, and the flexibility was amazing around my young girls. So she wasn't saying something that was untrue. But here's the thing, most of these people don't see the toll that your current job is taking on you. And if they did, they wouldn't say these things. Moving on to the comfort zone paralysis. Even when we're miserable, we can get stuck in our comfort zones. The effort required to take the first step towards change can feel completely overwhelming. So staying in a job you hate can feel safe because it's so familiar, even when it is slowly destroying you. So here's what I did. I started doing things that took me out of my comfort zone regularly. And especially because it was during COVID, we had a really cozy comfort zone when I recognised that I didn't want to be in this job anymore. I was breaking out of almost a hibernation zone at this point. So I took up aerial yoga. And I did this because it took me completely out of my comfort zone. And doing aerial yoga, I had to trust the silk would hold me as I tried these suspended poses I'd never done before. And I had to trust myself too, that my hands would hold in the right place to keep me from falling to the ground. I got addicted to that feeling of growth and expansion. And I was doing it 3 to 4 times a week because it made me feel so good. Coming off COVID, there was so much we didn't do that was new, exciting, or different. This was just like coming alive again. So start doing something weekly that pushes your boundaries. And one of my favourite sayings is, when was the last time you did something for the first time? You want to be able to answer this week if somebody asks you that. So start making those changes now to warm yourself up. Moving on to lack of clarity. This was huge for me. I was terrified of telling anybody that I wanted to change careers because I knew they'd then ask me, well, what do you want to do instead? And I didn't have a clue. I had vague ideas, or inklings, as I like to call them, and that paralysed me because they were vague. So it wasn't something I could say, oh, I'm aiming towards this, or I think I'm going to do this. So I didn't talk about it at all. You're probably constantly wondering yourself, what else could I do? But you're limiting your options dramatically. Here's a tip. Start by identifying your natural talents. This is the first step to clarity, and it will instantly broaden what you realise you're capable of doing, because we really narrow ourselves down and pigeonhole ourselves into certain things. And I can tell you right now, with the number of people I've worked with and the realisation I see people have once they understand their natural talents is so much broader than what you thought you were capable of doing. So we're moving on now to self-doubt and imposter syndrome as a very key reason people stay in jobs they really don't like. Now, these twin demons can hold you back from pursuing work that aligns with who you truly are. That negative self-talk becomes a prison. You start believing that you need to go back to school for years to become qualified for a different career. Imposter syndrome makes you doubt your abilities and thinks you're completely worthless of doing anything other than what you can do now. And it must be shut down immediately. You have transferable skills. You've been perfecting these skills your entire career, and you can bring those to any job that you do. And they're usually driven by your natural talents. So you can see now this theme of doing a little bit of self-reflection and understanding yourself actually opens up to a lot of opportunities. So one of the other aspects that keeps you in a job you don't like is trying to go it alone. I tried this approach and it was slow and agonising. And the minute I engaged support from a coach and mentor, everything changed. Working through all these barriers I've just discussed requires huge mindset shifts, and it's not linear. Imposter syndrome might pop up every few weeks, financial concerns at different times, your family voices casting doubt rear their head all the time. The support and having a different perspective from others around you will get you through all this. Having no roadmap is also something that will keep you completely stuck. You've never done this before. You have no idea what you're doing, and there's no clear roadmap. Let's just be completely honest and frank about this. So having someone who's experienced this journey and all the feels that come with it, that can guide you through each step, is a complete game changer. Or at least someone with a tried and tested roadmap for steering you out of your workquake and towards clarity. So know that there are resources and people that have lived and walked this before, or have coached others through this before, that you can actually use to help. So let's focus a little bit on the roadmap out. So you've identified that you're experiencing a workquake. Tick to that, well done. Now what? Here's your roadmap out of the career quicksand and towards the action that will lead you much closer to career clarity. First of all, relax into knowing that you're experiencing a workquake. This isn't a character flaw or a sign of weakness. It's a sign that you're growing and that you're ready for the next level of your life. This is exciting. So make sure the emotions you're feeling about this match that. Seek support. I cannot stress this enough. Don't try to navigate this alone. Seeking support from a mentor, a coach, or a networking group, or a trusted friend will see you through this. A support system provides guidance, motivation, and accountability as you work your way through this. Start with self-discovery. Begin by getting clear on your talents, your values, and what job meaning and fulfillment looks like for you, because it's different for everyone. So don't look outward for that. Look internally to define what it is you're wanting. This isn't about finding the perfect job title. It's about understanding what makes you come alive. This is why so much self-reflection is really important during a workquake. Take small steps. You don't need to make a big, dramatic change overnight. In fact, thinking about a big, dramatic change is often what's generating your fear response, because it's too big. You're naturally going to feel fear. Start with small steps that move you toward your authentic self. And maybe just having conversations with people in fields that interest you, where you might consider moving into, or taking a course in the new area that excites you, or simply starting to talk about your dreams and aspirations. The more you talk about it, the more opportunities present themselves. Embrace the process. Remember, this is a journey. It's not a destination. There will be setbacks, moments of doubt, and, of course, times when you question everything. And that's normal. It's completely normal. That's part of the process. This is a profound transformation, and sometimes it's more profound mentally than it actually is when you look back at it after you've achieved this change. But it's not just a job change. You're becoming a more authentic version of yourself, and that kind of takes time. So, as we wrap up today's episode, I want you to remember this. That feeling of being stuck in a job you hate isn't a life sentence. It's information. What it is your inner wisdom telling you that you are so ready for something more aligned with who you truly are. Your workquake isn't happening to you, it's happening for you. This is an invitation to step into a more authentic, fulfilling version of your professional life. If today's episode resonated with you, I encourage you to take just one small step forward. Maybe that's having a conversation with someone who inspires you, or simply acknowledging that you are ready for change. Just say it out loud. I'm ready for change. Let's do this. It's just that acknowledgement. It's like drawing a line in the sand. And remember, you don't have to have all the answers right now. I didn't. You just need to be willing to take the first step. Thank you for joining me today. Your next chapter is waiting for you. You just have to be brave enough to turn the page. So until next time, keep following those inklings. Thank you for joining me today on the Inkling Effect. If you want more of me in your life, then please subscribe or follow the Inkling Effect before leaving. If something in this episode resonated with you, I'd love to continue the conversation. So head over to theinklingeffect.com.au and find out all the ways that I can support you to make your career inkling a reality. If you know someone who needs to hear what we talked about today, please share this episode with them. I'd love to help guide them towards career clarity as well. Now for the disclaimer. The content of this podcast or video is for informational and educational purposes only. While we aim to share insights, strategies and tools that can support your career or personal growth, we make no guarantees about your results, earnings or life satisfaction. Success depends on many individual factors, including your skills, effort, dedication and personal circumstances. This is not professional advice. The information provided does not replace the guidance of trained professionals in fields such as financial, medical, psychological or legal matters. You acknowledge and agree that we are not financial advisors or lawyers, and we strongly recommend that you obtain independent professional financial or legal advice before you make decisions or take steps as a result of the content in this recording. We are also not medical doctors, psychiatrists, psychologists, qualified social workers or counsellors. We strongly recommend that you obtain independent professional health advice before you make decisions or take steps that rely on any mindset, health or medical information we may provide. For example, do not use any mindset guidance or health information to treat any medical disorder or disease. Always consult with the appropriate expert before making significant decisions. You are solely responsible for your decisions, actions, and outcomes. And by listening to this podcast or watching this video, you agree not to hold us liable for any actions or outcomes that are to follow.